is a title no one wants to have. Highest crime rate in the country. But for North Battleford, it's a title they've had for several years. And while it's frustrating residents, it's also putting a strain on police officers. Now, they're the ones on the front lines attending to these calls. We catch up with the man in charge of the city's police force.
The North Battleford RCMP headquarters sits empty on this Friday afternoon in December. Many already gone home for the day, others are out on patrol. Sergeant Neil Tremblay gives us a tour of the facility.
So we have ident down here, like our forensic ident, like fingerprinting section, that type of thing.
Sergeant Tremblay has been at the helm of this detachment since 2012, but he's familiar with the area, working the beat as a constable for 4 years back in 2003. He knows crime is a problem in the area. Now, according to RCMP statistics, there was a rise in several types of crime over the past couple of years. For instance, there were 3 charges laid in 2013 up until October in regards to murder and attempted murder. But the biggest numbers were in the areas of mischief and property offenses.
North Battleford has been near or at #1 for the communities of that size for 2 decades. So it's been happening for this long. It's going to take a long time to address it.
In order to address it, you need to take a look at the root cause of it. According to Sergeant Tremblay, poverty and addictions are historically the 2 biggest factors that can determine a city or town's crime rate.
We go to a home for whatever reason, and where there's violence, where there's drug addiction, alcohol addiction, and you can see that it's starting with the children as young as they're in infancy to toddlers, and you can just see that cycle starting and continuing over and over again, and it's very sad, and it's one of the worst parts of policing, one of the worst things we see on a weekly, daily basis.
According to the sergeant, 1/4 of the population is under the age of 20, and 35% of adults have no secondary education. Sergeant Tremblay had this to say during the crime meeting, quote, "Unless you look at poverty, it's not going to fix the issues." End quote.
Youth offense and high youth rates crime rates have been an ongoing problem here, and it's not hard to predict that if you have a high youth crime rate, it's going to translate down the road into high adult crime rates.
Taking a look at the numbers given to us by RCMP, last year there were 555 criminal charges laid against youth between the ages of 12 to 17. 329 of them were boys, 226 were girls. Police also tell me that there were 58 youth under the age of 12 that could have been charged but were not. Now, these statistics do not show the number of youth that were persons of interest in some crimes.
The overwhelming majority of the youth that are involved in crime are coming from dysfunctional family environments. It's pretty easy to connect the dots from one to the other.
And that's why programs such as HUB and the Safe Neighborhoods Community Act, known as SCAN, helps police enforce or prevent these issues.
You're going to do way more down the road trying to, if you can get to people when they're 10 and 12 and stop a lifetime of poverty, of substance abuse, of crime, you're going to go a lot longer ways than just taking a 12-year-old and putting them in an incarceration for a few months. I mean, we want to get to the point where we're preventing that from starting from the beginning.
And it's this reason why it's so important to be able to target the youth in the community, to give them a place to turn to.
We asked Sergeant Tremblay about the situation with gangs in the city. Now, it's nothing new that every city has to deal with the issue, but what do you do when people from out of town come into your community and cause problems?
It is a situation that goes in flux. You have issues with certain people, whether or not they're associated to a gang or not. They get dealt with, often they get incarcerated for periods of time, and then there's a lull. Other people come in and can kind of take over. To keep it in perspective, there's still other issues that exist in the community that really are not even part and parcel of the gang problem. There's still other criminal problems that are not associated to any gangs.
There were several rumors going around North Battleford that there were gang initiatives going on last year. While police couldn't confirm those, it had many people scared. Now, we heard from many residents who said that they didn't feel comfortable leaving their homes or going to certain places in North Battleford. As well, we asked RCMP if we can go along on a ride along to see some of the calls police were getting asked to report to, but due to certain protocols, we were not allowed to do so. But Sergeant Tremblay did drive us around for a bit in his police cruiser to give us a tour of the city. Now, there are certain areas that are worse off than others, just like in any other communities, but he wants to assure the public that police are out in full force, keeping a watchful eye on things.
We have higher crime volume and patrolled areas. Like kind of going from the detachment, we're going east right now on 11th, heading towards 110th. And around the hospital area. This tends to be a slightly higher call volume. So a lot of even just our active patrolling is concentrated a little bit more in this area. But again, we try and make sure that we have as much visibility everywhere in town as we can. And you know, generally speaking, geographically, it's not a real large city, so it's usually pretty easy to cover a lot of ground in a short period of time. A lot of our time, especially, you know, any time of day, if we're not, you know, either going to or from a call, or if we're not going to or from interviews or such things that we have to do, that's one of our primary focuses. We're trying to identify erratic and dangerous and impaired driving, and taking some active and proactive enforcement in that regard.
Well, coming up after the break, we take a look at a new initiative police are doing to increase transparency. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. Now, over the past 5 years, RCMP have responded to more than 65,000 service calls. They have ranged from minor property complaints to a homicide. And so a new initiative has police opening up on what exactly they are called out to every day.
North Battleford RCMP yield dozens of calls a day, but not all of them are of serious nature. From intoxicated individuals to a meltdown at a Tim Hortons drive-thru, RCMP respond to every call that comes in. That's why they're now releasing daily reports to let the public know what they're doing in a 24-hour period. For instance, 3:10 p.m. report of Facebook postings over a disagreement over pizza. 9:16 p.m. unwanted and intoxicated female at a residence on 108th Street. Subject left when police called. 10:18 p.m. 911 call of a group of people arguing and fighting. A 13-year-old and a 16-year-old were charged. In the period from January 10th to January 13th, more than 70 calls and occurrences were reported. More than 25 arrests were made for a variety of offenses.
The big message we wanted to get out to people is, you know, not to minimize the crime issues here, because they are serious, but, you know, again, just to inform people, to educate people, to understand that, you know, you don't have to live in fear. Violent crime, again, it was a topic at that meeting, tends to be people who know each other tend to victimize each other. That's historically the issue.
Sergeant Tremblay reiterates that the majority of crime North Battleford is seeing in the past few years isn't as violent as some think.
And I think there was this growing fear of people being, you know, assaulted and beaten in the streets, which was, you know, so beyond what was in actuality, you know, what the reality of the situation.
He says the daily reports are also used to squash rumors that were being passed along in the community. And the reports seem to be a big hit. The response to them have been positive. Some say they were even surprised with what the RCMP had to deal with. Well, coming up after the break, taking back the city. Residents are trying to figure out a way to break a title no one wants. Stay tuned.
Now, over the past hour, we've heard from many different residents of North Battleford, each of them with a story to tell, each of them wanting to see their city become a place where they are not leading the statistics on crime. Now, it's evident when speaking with them that they love this city and want to break the cycle.
We forced people to pay attention to what's going on. Now we're getting the reports from the RCMP, the paper's printing it all.
North Battleford has been near or at #1 for the, you know, communities of that size for 2 decades. So it's been happening for this long. It's going to take a long time to address it, but I think we are looking at new and different ways of doing that.
I can't say enough about the fact that we need to become community again. And so we've been working very hard at establishing a neighborhood watch program, which is simply getting to know your neighbors.
It's helping neighbors. It's helping the community build. But until we can get rid of this cloud over our heads, I think it's going to slow us down.
It's so important to know your next door neighbor, what their activities are. You know, are they going to be home? Are they going to be away on vacation? Should we be watching each other's homes?
The main point that we try and get across is that the youth in this community aren't alone. There are places and people that they can count on and rely on.
It is also a generational issue, and it's going to take more than, this is not going to be a 2 or a 3 or a 4 year fix.
I wish I could tell everybody, no problem, walk the streets at 2 o'clock in the morning. It would be nice, but that's not a reality, in any community anymore.
It's up to each and every one of our youth to make their own informed decisions. And sadly, there is some lack of family support in our community because of addictions. And some of the kids do take the wrong path. But if we can get together as a community and help these kids, that's what we need to do.
We just want youth to know that they are valued. A lot of youth feel like they don't have a voice and that nobody's listening to them or nobody's here for them. And that's really sad to hear, and that's not true.
From raising families to making a career out of helping those very same families, everyone has a role in the situation. And if they are not part of the solution, well, they are a part of the problem. So now the work is in the hands of the community, and it's only when they turn to one another for support that they can eventually do what it takes to take back the city. Now, if you have any comments you would like to share with us on this topic, you can find us on Facebook. For Newcap News, I'm Nara Manisa. Good night.